Reckless 2.0 here with Vickers and D-Train. Are you there?
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Yes. How are you doing on the plantation?
I'm still learning. How are you?
It's rough. It's it's a lot, but gotta stay positive and constructive.
Yes, sir.
Yep. And today's broadcast, we will be talking with Miss Sheila Robinson-Kiss. She'll be talking about her article, "Lonely? Why Not Try Dating Outside Your Race?" And Miss Robinson-Kiss is an author, counselor, therapist, speaker, presenter. In 1999, she created Lakecalm Incorporated. You can go to Lakecalm.com to check out some of her work. She primarily speaks about relationships and does counseling and therapy. And I guess we ran across this article, and I think it's very, very. Just seeing an article like this is just it's very common, but at the same time it's it just needs to be addressed. D-Train?
Yeah, I thought that the article was quite interesting, and hopefully we can have an interesting dialogue around it. And I think everybody knows my opinion on these type of relationships, and I just found some interesting, things in the article that I think need to be discussed. I really think they need to be discussed. And I've seen some trends in articles like this from both black people and white people who write these type of articles. I've seen some common themes. I definitely think it should be addressed and discussed, and people can decide for themselves.
Absolutely. I guess when you're ready, are you ready now? I guess we can give Miss Robinson-Kiss a buzz.
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello, Miss Robinson-Kiss?
Yes, it's me. It's Sheila.
Oh, yes. Hi, Sheila. This is Vickers. And
hi, Vickers. How are you?
I'm still learning, cold, and trying to be constructive. Okay. I'm also here with my co-host, D-Train.
Good evening,
hi,
ma'am.
D-Train.
How you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
Well, doing as well as I can be.
Okay, good.
Great. And again, thank you for providing some of your time to speak about your work and various articles. And I guess before we get started with questioning, is there anything you would like the listening audience to know about you and your work and your background?
Yeah, definitely. They can certainly find out more about what I'm doing at the website, www.lakecalm.com. But right now, the big initiative that's underway is the Love by Spring, and they can check that out on my site. And essentially, I am a therapist as well as a trainer and a writer. So my area of expertise all centers around relationship recovery and resilience.
Great. Relationships can be important. I guess I would start off by, I would ask you to maybe expand upon the article, the blog that I came across that is on yourtango.com, and the title of the article is "Lonely? Try Dating Outside Your Race."
Right.
And I guess, do you mind explaining it or expanding upon it?
Sure. I really came up with the concept of the article after I had a conversation with a friend of mine in Brooklyn, and as women do from time to time, she was complaining about the slim pickings. And I reminded her that, hey, there's many more pickings out there. You have to kind of open your mind to this. And, that was the spark for the idea of the article. And I don't know how much of the article you've read, but I just talk a little bit about my journey in Milwaukee, and my experience, I think, is not unlike a lot of women. You reach a point, you may have something in your head, maybe you have a preset program of, this is the kind of person I'm going to date, or this is the kind of person I'm going to marry. And, then reality creeps in, like it did for me in Milwaukee, and that really was not available. So I was more or less faced with a decision, continue to hang out with Lifetime Television Network or start accepting some dates from people outside of my race, and I'm really glad I did.
Sheila, I guess I would ask you, because we're talking about dating outside of your race. So I guess, what do you mean when you say race? I guess, what does race mean to you?
So, obviously the conversation could split off into a million different directions because race means different things to different people. But when I referenced race in the article, simply talking about people who are a different racial background than you, different color than you, or different ethnicity.
Okay. I guess I would ask. I guess one thing about the article before I go into the Milwaukee thing is that it says, the title says, "Lonely? Try dating outside your race." And I see with a lot of articles, this trend is date outside, where it says date outside your race, interracial dating, in terms like this. And really, I see nowhere in the article where it means anybody but a white person or white. I don't see it, going through, I guess, the chocolate shades of milk chocolate, dark chocolate, and white chocolate, but
Sure.
There's no, but not mentioning anything other than a white person. I just find that very interesting. Is there any reason why only white? And it's not just with I see it as a trend with many articles where it would tell you to date outside your race, but then it's essentially just saying date a white person.
Right. I think that you have to keep in mind that the article was actually written from the perspective of the client that I was working with, and she was African American. I'm African American, but actually this same question came up in a radio show I did last week, and you could easily, it was a very short, simple article, but as I referenced on that show, certainly I've dated Spanish men, Indian men. It was used as a very generic piece in this article, but anyone could broaden that to include anyone who's outside of your race.
Interesting. D-Train?
Okay. I don't know. I just find it interesting because it seems to be a trend, and I'm not. This isn't just towards you. I think that it's a trend in these articles that I've seen past year or two, where I believe there was like an article on MSNBC this was a couple of months back, maybe 6 months back, well, several months back, where it was tallying the data of so-called interracial relationships, whatever that meant, and the measurement was the rate of white people getting married to non-white people, and there was no mention at all of black people getting married to Native Americans or Latinos getting married to Asians or any of this other thing, and any of these other, I guess, so-called interracial marriages. And I don't know, I just find it highly interesting that it seems that when we're talking interracial, we're talking white, non-white. And I just wondered if you had any thoughts on that. Do you think that trend in general means that there is only one race?
I mean, of course not. I think that, even if you actually, an article is going to be coming out soon from one of my colleagues on your tango, and it doesn't necessarily touch on it exactly what you're alluding to, the fact that there's not many articles talking about black with Spanish or black with Indian, but she is going to be talking about the interracial piece. And, she just looked at some stats from the Census Bureau, and, certainly that is happening. But I think people, a lot of times they're writing these articles and they're using it in more generic, it's used in more generic terms, white and black, because that is the most prevalent interracial dynamic that you're going to see. But I think what's more interesting is this trend for people who are of different races, different colors, hooking up in relationships or for marriage. That's on the rise in general, and I think that's even more interesting. So it's not that what the piece that you're zeroing in on, it's not that that's not happening. I think that most people who are writing about it are basing it on their experience, and that's certainly what I'm doing.
Okay.
I see an interesting statistic actually in the article. I'll read an excerpt from it. In 1958, only 4% of Americans approved of interracial relationships, and today over 79 are on board for the colorful love train and approving of interracial unions. And I guess I would ask, two questions. One, are you aware of the pool of people that were done in this survey? Because I remember seeing this similar reports to this, that people are more approving of it and things of that nature. And I was just wondering, were you taking into account that? And if this was true, why do you think that change has happened, and what do you think makes things different, or made that change occur?
Okay, that's a really good question. My statistic is taken straight from our last Census Bureau information, and I think what's happening is the world is changing. I think people are traveling more. I think in colleges and universities, different races and ethnicities are thrown into the mix together, and I think, a lot of people talk about, these seminars on racial diversity and people reading books about racial and ethnic diversity, but really the only thing that I've ever found that breaks down barriers in terms of people from different walks of life truly getting to know each other is experience. One-on-one, side by side, learning together or working together or being put together in environments where it's just natural and they're going to mix and mingle. And love, as we know throughout history, we put the barriers up. But love has no barriers. No, this is not something new. I just think because of the way the world is changing with the internet, there's so many interracial internet dating sites that have popped up too. So I think there's just more access, and I think we're going to see the numbers grow even more over the next 10, 15 years because people, their minds are expanding, and I think we're discovering just as a collective consciousness, wow, we did create these barriers. The joke is on us. People are people, and when we're talking about finding love and partnership, I think it's hard enough without the racial piece in there. I think we're just to a point now where it's like, hey, all bets are off. We take the love where we can find it, and we take it with a smile.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, DJ.
I was just going to ask you, with some of the non-white people that you have dated, I guess you had mentioned an Indian male, and I believe you mentioned another ethnic group. But have you ever had discussions with them about so-called interracial dating and, who their parents or who their brothers and sisters would rather that male be seen taken home with if he chose to date outside his so-called race, whether they preferred a white person over a black person?
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. Actually, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask. Oh, well, you can expand on it. I was just going to ask what were the results.
Okay, yeah. Actually, the Indian guy that I dated, that busted up because his parents could go as far as, okay, I can understand you dating this woman, but this, the marriage piece, they definitely would have had a problem with him marrying outside of his race, and it was not a barrier for me. That was a barrier for him, and because he could not overcome that, obviously this is something that I walked away from. But that happens more than you would think. But I think you reach a point where are you going to live and make decisions for your parents, or are you going to live and make decisions for yourself? So I have had some heavy-duty conversations with the men I've dated outside of my race in the past, and it really varies. That was kind of a unique situation, but it varies, family to family.
That's anti-black. What do you think, I guess just a hunch, I'm not sure how well you knew his parents, but what do you think, would his parents have been more approving if he had brought home a white person or maybe
That's a really good question, and to be completely honest, yes, I do. I think that they would have been far more approving if I was a white woman, and I think that's just nothing else to call it but pure racism, and that is that's been set up a long time ago. Their opinion that a white woman is more suitable, that's something that has filtered down from generation to generation. Now, he was born here. His parents were not. But, if you have spent any time in India, there is a strong caste system. And so much of that, they play into the skin color piece too. And that's still very ingrained in that culture. So, yeah, I do think it would have been an easier go of it. That's not something they readily wanted to admit, but, it's just a fact.
Not surprised.
Double whammy.
Well, matter of fact, that's confirmed because he did go on to he married an Indian woman and then he ended up marrying a white woman. So somewhere in there that piece was acceptable. Yeah.
Do you think that self-hate kind of plays into that role? I guess how dark was, because there are Indians that are so-called Indians that are extremely light-skinned, and then you have so-called Indians who are almost black-skinned. I guess what skin tone?
He was, well. If you went on my website, you can see that, I'm, a dark brown woman. He was certainly darker than me, but I think it has so much to do with what they associate black women with versus what they associate white women with. And again, his parents would never come right out and admit that, but if you put two and two together, you can see what's going on. So I don't know if it has so much to do with self-hate versus status issues, if you can understand where I'm coming from with that.
Oh, definitely. Colonialism, white supremacy. I think
Right.
I think we've all been brain trashed with that. I've even seen where black people have
Oh yeah.
trashed other non-white people in favor for white people. I guess I would ask.
Oh.
In your opinion, do you believe, and I'll give a definition for this, but do you believe that we are in a system, a local global system of white supremacy? And what I mean by that is just a power system where whites have control over everybody that they consider non-white in all areas of human activity?
No, I don't.
You don't?
I just
Okay.
don't. I mean, I think maybe if I was around 40 years ago and you asked me, I'm not quite 40 yet, so I wasn't around, I would have had a different answer. But when we start getting into issues, there's all different types of power. I mean, multiple kinds of power in multiple situations. So no, I do not subscribe to the ideology that white people are dominant and in control, and it's set up as a supremacy hierarchy. No, it's more, just we're kind of deviating, but I think it has far more to do with economics now than color. Any power structures have far more to do with economic factors than color. That's my thought.
Okay, thank you for your honesty. I had. Oh, you want to go ahead, Vic?
I'll get a quick one in.
Sure.
Earlier you said that we have these barriers up, and that these barriers have hurt us, and things of that nature, and that's why it would be, I guess, in the best interest to I guess consider dating outside one so-called race. What are these exact barriers, and why were these barriers put up? Would you mind going into that?
Sure, no problem. I think, one of the main barriers that I've seen in my work is fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of what people are going to think, and all of that is really based in ignorance. And when I say that's hurt us or that's hurt people, what I mean is, anything that you deny yourself based on fear, just by that fact alone, you've missed out. The client that came to my office, and I described this in the article, she was really, adamant that, as the quote goes, I'm in search of Mr. Goodbar and I want him to be chocolate. And she was just so frustrated. She's a woman in her late 30s. And, we got into this conversation about interracial dating, and she just, flat out said, I cannot imagine that. I don't know what my family would think. I'm pretty sure they would feel like I sold myself and sold them down the river. And, when we peel back some more layers, it wasn't necessarily that she was completely opposed to interracial dating. She just had so many questions and so many fears of the unknown, and a lot of that was, outside of her. This worry about status and tradition, and meanwhile, she was in the same boat that I was in Milwaukee. She's getting the invitations, the interest is there, but she has put up a barrier herself. So I think one of the main barriers is fear.
Interesting. And I guess I would throw in my 2 cents that I think sometimes fear, sometimes fear is a defense mechanism against
Sure.
against being harmed in some way, shape, or form, and there might be good reasons for I guess for your client that was that why they had their barriers up, and being fearful of it.
Definitely.
And just I think that it's. I just think that her having these barriers up and things of that nature was it's just for some you don't hear it a lot, but when you do hear it, I do think that there is a good reason, and they can't they can't see themselves in the situation, and I think being
I think sometimes it's even it's also based on past experience and experiences that are passed down from parents as well. Again, as we went on talking, she did say to me that her parents had some very strong opposition to this, just because of what they had gone through during the civil rights movement, and it would have been looked at as a betrayal in their eyes, a betrayal to her culture, and that's a heavy piece to deal with. So I would not minimize her fear, but I would go back and say, at some point you have to look yourself in the mirror and say, who am I living for? And is my future and potentially love and a family, if that's what you want, is that worth the fight? Is that worth working with my parents to break down this barrier or work through it? So, everyone has to ask themselves the question.
Interesting. D-Train?
Okay. I guess I have a few. Okay, I guess I'll start with this one. In the article, you describe, I guess, dating white men as you call it. I guess you call them white chocolate. I guess.
Right.
What do you mean when you say white chocolate? Is it?
So.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
So when I refer to white men as white chocolate, I'm kind of saying this in a tongue-in-cheek way. So, black men would be our dark chocolate. I guess if I broke it down more in the article, the milk chocolate might be the Spanish guy or the Asian guy, and of course the white chocolate. That would be a symbol for, like, my husband. He's German, so he'd fall into the white chocolate category. It was for fun. It was just tongue in cheek.
German chocolate.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we call ourselves. Yep, it works.
Okay. Ooh, that led me to another question, but I just lost my train of thought. Here's another one I wanted to ask you that was unrelated though. Have you or any of your clients ever experienced in the dating game, I guess white people or people who were not black who espoused anti-black views? And I guess how did you train the people that you were counseling, or how did you personally deal with it?
You know what? I would not say that I dealt with it directly, but I did have a client, and I needed to walk her through this. And she was a white woman, actually Italian, and she had gone through her paces, and she knew, she had met this black guy, and she was pretty set on the fact that he's the one. Great guy, and her family was just a family full of racists, and they were not, it wasn't even anything that was closeted racist. This was just, out and out. This is not what you're going to do. This is not what we've ever done. We don't want these, N-word babies in our family. And the thing about a fanatic, and you do have racists who are fanatics, and her family, I would put most of them in that category, you are not going to do much good by trying to stop and talk to them and explain, because they're coming to you already shut down. And, I counseled her. I really took the attention off of them and put it on to her, because she had some tough questions to answer, and some tough adjustments to make if she was really going to go through with this. Number one, do you realize if you move forward, this does mean losing your family, because they are just not in your corner with this, and I don't see them, at least for any time in the near future, coming on board. So she understood that. We talked about what is it going to mean, for the holidays. You've got a big family, so these big family traditions, it's really going to mean really forging even an extra special bond with this man you're going to marry and his family. Are you prepared to do that? She was. So it's one of those things. It's such a mental adjustment. You just have to adjust your mindset and take the focus off of them. Now, let's kind of switch it up a little bit. In her case, they were just, absolute fanatics. But what do you do if, you find someone that, you're interested in, they're outside of your race, and you're not getting, mega pushback from your family or friends or what have you, but there is a little tension there. And what I always tell people, most folks don't like change anyway, but if you're willing to risk the discomfort, and maybe it's not even your own discomfort, but it's just being uncomfortable around them as you're making that adjustment, as you're rolling this person into your life. If you're willing to risk some discomfort, which you will find, more and more, and I said this earlier, that experience, sitting down to dinner together, going to movies together, having family picnics together, that breaks down these stereotypes, and that breaks down barriers. So if you're willing to have that transition period, it can really work out. But again, going back to the original, if it's a fanatic, there's just not much you can do. You have to leave that in God's hands, leave that in the hands of time. Maybe they'll soften, maybe they'll come into some realities that most of us are in. But, sometimes these decisions do cost people their friends and family. It can happen.
I've certainly seen it happen. It's very, very unfortunate. Actually, that leads me to a question. Do you think that it is possible for a non-white person, a black person, to be in a relationship with being a sexual relationship with, married to, with a white person that might not overtly mistreat them, or still might overtly mistreat them, but still be a racist. That they might not overtly mistreat them. They may say that they like black people and or like non-white people, or might be so-called friendly. Do you think that they can do all these things and still be racist?
Okay, so let me make sure I understand your question. Your question is, do I think that a black person could be married to a white person and either one of them could still be a racist?
No.
Married outside of their race?
My question is, yes, but specifically is it possible that a white person could be a racist and, have feelings of white supremacy and still be in a sexual relationship with and get married to a non-white person?
You know what, I do. It's an interesting question. I have not seen that dynamic personally, but yeah, we live in a strange world. Anything is possible. I think it would have to be a person, like now I'm going to get into a little bit of the psychology of it. I think it would have to be a person who has like a very splintered personality. In other words, they see the world in segments. Maybe they have this attraction for this person who is outside of their race. Maybe it's a strong physical attraction, sexual attraction. Maybe they even have some things in common, but certainly on the other hand, they could still believe, this my race is dominant. I think it would be an interesting dynamic to, interview a couple who is like that. As I said, I haven't seen it, and I wonder how it would play itself out. Obviously this person's not going to get up and go to the KKK meeting, but, would probably play itself out in conversations or how they treat this individual. Yeah, it's a mix. It's a mix. The other day on Dr. Phil, I saw this guy who it's called infantilism, and he's like in his late 30s, and he still likes to dress up as a baby and live as a little child. So yeah, anything is possible. It's a crazy world.
Crazy indeed, racist indeed. It's a racist world. And I would just point out that I guess the evidence shows that many times racist, I would say Strom Thurmond, use him as an example. Thomas Jefferson can be in a sexual relationship with a non-white person and still be a stone cold racist. And that's a
perfect example.
And actually being in these relationships, and if you're feeling like you're dominant, and quite frankly, you are in a dominant position, this would be practicing racism. You're dominating somebody in the bedroom, just economically. As you said before, economics. If it is on an economic scale, and you said today that it's more about just economic disparities instead of so-called race. If you notice that the economic disparities goes on a color gradient. There's even within the black community, people who are lighter skinned make more money on average than darker skinned people. The net worth of
really is that true?
There have been numerous studies that have pointed that.
You can Google Dr. William Darity. He's done a lot of work on this. And actually, I could probably send you some emails after the show.
I would that's interesting. I had not heard that stat. I would, whatever he's got, I would like to read it. That's very interesting.
Oh, yes. And people with so-called black-sounding names getting 50% less callbacks.
I believe it.
And
I believe it.
Things of that nature. And just looking at unemployment statistics, you said right in Milwaukee, black male unemployment is 56%, which is completely outrageous. If it was white male unemployment was 56%, the world would blow up right now because and I would just say that if it is on, you could say that it's on a economic scale. It's on an economic scale, but it's that's just I guess a box or just a cover or the surface of it. Where if you look under the surface, it's really on a color gradient. So it is. I will say that the color disparity is certainly a prevalent issue, and I think that. I think that's.
Oh yeah, don't misunderstand what I said and where I'm coming from. I think the question was directed. Do I think, if I can recall the question, do I think that the culture is set up in a white supremacy framework? Not necessarily, but that does not mean that I don't see the racial disparities. I mean, that's real. You can see that in New York. I'm here in Jersey. You can see that in Jersey. You can see that all the time. So when I hear that question, I take it to mean that when we're talking about power, universally everyone is being dominated. I cannot say that I believe that, but certainly racial disparities exist all around us. I went to look at an office space in Chicago at one point in time, and I know for a fact everything was fine before I showed up in person, and all of a sudden, oh wow, there's no office space. So this happens all the time. We have a long way to go in this country in terms of that issue.
I certainly agree. There's a lot of work to be done, and with that issue in mind, and I would just say that would play a role in relationships and people and who people want to be with. And I guess the next question I would ask her, you say that in your article that there's a shortage, and you mentioned earlier that there's been slim pickings for black male for so-called Mr. Goodbar, chocolate Mr. Goodbar. Would you mind going into why there's such a shortage or such a perceived shortage?
I can't. Right. So in the article, I did not reference there was a shortage, but earlier in the conversation, I said that I was talking to a friend and she was referencing the slim pickings. I don't have any hard data in front of me, but I'll tell you, my thought on it depends on what group we're talking about. If we're talking about is there a shortage of black men that are ready, willing, able to get married in an economic position to do so, in terms of the number of black women who would desire them as a mate, yes, I think there is a shortage. Why is there a shortage? Oh, God, I mean, that's such a complex question. I think we have so many of our black men are in jail. I think that answers part of it. Others that aren't in jail, some are just, disenfranchised in their community. We talk about these high unemployment rates and how that ties into self-esteem issues and the ability to take care of a family, the ability to date, so you can even select a mate. There's all sorts of threads in there, but I can tell you based on the workshops that I've done around the country, based on feedback from my newsletters and webinars, that there are so many black women who are just in a position that, they, again, like my client, in search of Mr. Goodbar, wanting to be chocolate. and they're holding on, and they cross that threshold of, well over 30, then into their 40s, and it's like, okay, this didn't go down the way I wanted it to. What's up? And they'll tell you over and over again, where are they? Where are they? Some of these women they're just at a loss. So I can't, again, I don't have any hard numbers in front of me, but I've shared a little bit about what I think is going on.
Interesting. Okay.
I have two questions. One was kind of piggybacking on would you suspect that a white person who is married to a black person could still be a racist? I just wanted to know your opinion. You heard about the incident on the Dr. Laura program. This was maybe about a year and a half ago. And did you?
Oh, yeah. Is it the one where she just said she kept saying nigger over and over again? That one? Yeah.
Where the non-white female, I believe she called into the program asking Dr. Laura for
yeah.
help.
I followed that. Yeah.
Okay. Did you have any thoughts? Not on Dr. Laura in particular, but just on any thoughts about the wife in the situation, black woman. I do. My take on the situation was it was totally inappropriate for the host to. Let me back up and say why. First, if you the word nigger holds some. It's very loaded historically. And I think the reason that most blacks like myself were offended is because of the casual, arrogant tone that was taken when she was saying it. There really wasn't any remorse behind it, and the woman simply called in looking for assistance, and she was pummeled. So, my opinion, that was very controversial. I don't even know if that show is still on, but that's a very loaded word. And I would say that anyone who is not black or of African descent should be very careful in how they use it. Now, my grandfather used that term very affectionately toward me. That's what he called his grandchildren. Was little nigga this, little nigga that. That was him, okay? But I'll tell you, I had one of my friends, I think I was about 13 at that time, a little white girl. She heard him say it, and she she started to repeat it. And I remember even at that young age, we were about to go to blows over that. So it's very charged, and I think black people have a different kind of ownership over the use of that word, and I think it was used very recklessly. That's what I would say. Oh, but did you have any thoughts on why the black female had called in the first place? I believe she called to complain.
Yeah, refresh my memory.
Oh, okay. She had called to complain about her husband practicing racism against her. She basically she said that a bunch of her husband's friends were, making black jokes and always asking her to be the representative of all black people. And
was he white? Was he white? Is that correct?
Yes, he was a white man.
Was he white? Okay. And you're asking my opinion on that end of it?
Right, on that end of it, where do you think that her husband, that she was qualified to say that her husband was practicing racism for not protecting her from other white people practicing racism?
Oh, okay, that's a very interesting question. I feel that yes. I mean, every one of us, regardless of who you marry, whatever the case may be, you have a right to be offended Now, I think, I mean, if I was counseling that couple, I would really sit them both down and look them right in the eye and say, now, just the simple fact that this woman is offended by this should be enough for you to stop. If there's a person you say you love and you care about, that should just be enough that she's hurt and you should stop doing it. So, that's a separate dynamic in that relationship that I don't understand, but certainly I could feel why she was offended. Certainly she had a right to ask the question and voice her opinion, but that's a dynamic in their marriage and a chip missing in the person that she picked. Because, if my husband ever did something remotely similar, that would be a very serious problem and very offensive. You don't, just because your opinion is, it's no big deal, it's to be taken lightly. Well, perception is reality. And if she has the perception that, I'm offended, this is hurting me, this is a person you love, you stop. Period. And
okay.
Especially because it's such a charged word anyway, you stop.
Okay. I'm going to get in one more quick one, and then we can go to the phone lines real quick before we let you go.
Okay.
My last question is, I've noticed lately there was an article, and I can actually send you the link to this later, but there was an article, I believe this was in MSNBC as well, where people tend to use interracial marriage as an assimilation barometer, where and the headline of the article was that black people with higher educational attainment and higher incomes were far more likely to marry white people, and I guess I just wanted to know your opinion on, people in general using interracial marriage as a assimilation barometer and acting as like this is something to celebrate. Please
send me that article because that would be fascinating. I would caution anyone who is using that information or has the spin that this is something to be celebrated. It's a double-edged sword, okay? Especially, I can only speak for myself here, so that's what I'm going to do. I think when you talk about assimilation and you talk about the reasons why people make the decisions that they do, when I married my husband, it wasn't for a status symbol for him. It wasn't for a status symbol for me. It was because we met, and he's the sweetest man I ever met. He loves me, he respects me, and we had the same goals and visions, and we want to create a family. So we moved forward. I think that you gave the stat that people who, did you say undergrad and grad school are more likely to marry outside of their race? Is that what the stat was?
Yes, it specifically says whites. I actually have the article up right now. It's on News One, and like I said, I can.
Is it for? Are they saying that blacks who have undergrad and grad are more likely to marry whites, or is it the reverse?
No, whites specifically. That educated black people are more likely to marry whites, and it doesn't say Latinos or Asians or Native Americans. It says specifically.
Okay, so you, first of all, you guys give me an idea because I do want to, after this conversation, get some information on the stats between marriages between blacks and other ethnicities other than white folks or races other than white people. But back to your question, my minor was in sociology, and if the article, I'm sure that stat is correct, but it gets on my nerves when these articles come out, and they have such broad strokes. But I wonder if the article talked about some of the reasons why. Because if you had a chance to stratify the data, so you take an African American male or you take an African American female, and so when people are in undergrad, that's really like a boom to you're around different people. That's just a natural time that you would partner up and potentially find your mate. But if you look at someone who was in my situation or some other African-American male counterparts that I have, depending on what university you go to, that's, your pickings. If you're talking about I exclusively want to find another black person to marry, okay, those numbers are slim. Then, okay, it doesn't happen at that level. Then you go up to grad school. This is where you're spending most of your time. This is where you're hanging out. And those numbers even decline more when you talk about the number of minorities going to grad school. So a lot of this is not even necessarily, this is what I'm targeting. I'm targeting a white person. Some of it is about this is what's available to me, and I have no problem with it. As far as them measuring the assimilation, no, I don't feel it's a reason to celebrate coming from the angle of, look, more black people are marrying more white people, hooray. I don't think it's a celebration in that respect. I think it's a celebration for humanity, and that it shows that lots of barriers are being broken down, and people are going on to do what they want to do for their future in their life. But when we look at it in the backhanded, more racist way, no, I don't think it's a celebration for that. But I can understand why the numbers are the way they are when you break them down. It's just at certain phases in a person's life, it really becomes more of an issue of what is available to me in terms of what's the pool that I can choose from. And if you're choosing from that pool, then you stratify it even further. Okay, who has common interest? Who likes to go to the poetry readings? Who likes to go to the museum? Who likes to go out to jazz clubs? So there's a lot in the mix that these articles are not getting into. And how long can an article be? But it's kind of some broad strokes, and we really have to take it upon ourselves to pick them apart a little bit more.
Well, there's certainly a lot to get into, and a lot that these articles don't state. One thing I would just like to point out, actually, that what these articles really don't reflect is that, despite them and what these statistics on marriage don't reflect, is that there's still a lot of sex between white people and non-white people. Just in sex in general, just using, having sexual intercourse with with a person that is so-called outside of their race, and a lot of the times, the white person. I've personally seen a lot of times the white person would just use that, as you said earlier, as use chocolate actually as an aphrodisiac. And
sure. I have been face to face with that. Sure.
And then it's really just a lot of times black people are notoriously fetishized and sexual and hypersexualized and
absolutely,
and especially in the so-called Western cultures.
Absolutely.
And therefore, that's also the, I guess, what's the real ugly side of it. What's underneath the carpet.
It is.
And that's and I think just the term dating, it's not marriage, so dating, it's eventually going to lead to sexual intercourse. And I think that
it's very common. It's very common. It's still common, but you bring up a good point with the hypersexualized Black woman, and that is a factor. And I did encounter some of that early on in Milwaukee, and it didn't take me long to figure out, wow, you just have some of these guys out here, and women for that matter too, on both ends, that, hey, this is just kind of a flavor that I want to taste. There's nothing too much behind it, and you figure that out. Painful when you do, but you move along. And and I don't know what the cure for that is. I think you just call those people jerks. It's very unevolved. They're out there trying to fulfill these fantasies, whatever the case may be. But I think if someone is insightful and halfway intelligent, you can decipher what it's about. Is this about me for me, or is this about a booty call or some fulfilling some sexual fantasy? And you can the difference. Hopefully.
Well, I would say you said there's really no cure for that. I think that perhaps it goes back to that fear your client. You said that your client had that fear, that barrier. Sometimes these barriers need to be up because that could be out there, as was discussed earlier.
Absolutely.
There are racism can operate mostly through deception, deceiving people. Smiling in someone's face and then giving them blankets and sending them to Oklahoma. That disease blankets. So. Right. A lot of it is with deception. So I think that maybe these barriers are up for a reason.
Sure.
And again, I would also like to. Would you like to? One second. Sorry. I guess we're going to go to the phone line, and the call-in number is 917-889-2965. The number is 917-889-2965 to call and speak with our guest, Miss Sheila Robinson-Kiss.
Yeah.
I would also like to direct people to her website. Would you like to, stamina4mylife.com. That's stamina.
Right. They can find my information at www.staminaformylife.com, all running together.
Yes, and you can contact her, LinkedIn, and various other sources. It's very nice site. Very nice site.
Thank you.
Yep. I guess we're going to go to the phone line. Caller 1993. Your line is open. Caller 19. Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Well, you said 1993. I thought you were going to say 678. But I'm going to say a couple of things before I start to go on my word. I'm going to say a theory. I'm going to say this quote: the only niggers are white people, and black people are just trying to be like the white people, so they're trying to be like the niggers, and the niggers are the white people. Okay. And I'm gonna keep going on because I want to talk about Dr. Laura in a minute, but I'm just gonna say this: I don't like Asian girls. I don't like Indian girls. I don't even like Hispanic girls. The only two girls I like in the world are black women and white women. That is my preference, and that's what it's just gonna be. Because although white women are racist, they'll still sleep with you. They'll still so-called take care of you, but the Asian doesn't give a crap about you and won't even help you. They don't care.
Are you generalizing that to all Asian women?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
But that's impossible to do. You haven't dated all Asian women.
I may have not dated Asian women.
Do you think it's fair? Do you think it's a fair generalization?
I know in their coach that they're needy, they're too protective. And I talk to a lot of Asians as well. They're needy, they're too protective. They have strict families in China, Japan, and Taiwan. That's just their culture. I just don't like it.
Okay, to each his own.
I want to talk about Dr. Laura a little bit. I'm very mad. I was very mad when that happened.
Caller, did you have any actual questions for our guest?
Yes. When the incident with Dr. Laura happened, what did you think about that?
Is that the question directed toward me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, yeah, if you were, I don't know when you tuned into the show, but as I said to our host, what I thought about it was I felt what Dr. Laura did was very inappropriate, and as I shared earlier, I felt as though the caller who called in, she did have a right to feel offended, and I mentioned that I thought there was a serious problem with the dynamic in her marriage, that if this is what he was doing and he knew that she was offended, he really should have stopped. I think he has some sort of a chip missing, but, you know, definitely, again, back to how it all went down on the show, I think what Dr. Laura did was inappropriate. The woman was calling in for help, and I felt like she got slammed.
Thank you, caller at 678. Liberal 141. Your line's open.
Hello, great show. Great show. I'm listening to what you're saying. I have a question for the doctor. I'm in an interracial relationship. I'm very happy in it. I made that choice to not go out with black women. That was my choice. The question I want to ask, because she said that a lot of women come at 30, 40, and they realize that they don't have so much choices, and they panic and everything. Do you tell those women also that there is a lot more women in this world than men? So as men, we have more choices than women. It's easier for a man to get a woman than for...
Hello?
Hello?
Can someone repeat the caller's question because it cut off?
I said you must know that there are more women in this world than men. So the question is, do you tell women, caller, that the reality is men have more choice of having men than women have choice of men? That's the truth. It's not the other way around.
I don't have the stat here in front of me, but let's just go ahead and take your word for it. When I'm working with a client or when I'm talking to a group of women who are interested in finding a mate for their lives and they're very frustrated and they're looking into options, I don't necessarily talk about the stats, because my frame of thought is either it's going to happen or it's not. Either you're going to find that person that you want to move forward with or you're not, but I work with them to help them maximize the tools, their tools within and their attitude and their disposition so they have a greater chance, because I'm not in dispute with the numbers you're giving me. Again, I have to there's been a lot of stats discussed tonight, but no, I really don't take it from that angle of highlighting the fact that it'll be difficult for them because they're up against a numbers issue.
Okay, one other question also. Do you tell those women also that, because I feel that a lot of women from the age of, I would say from 18 till 31, seem to have a power control, seems to be in their set of basically accepting a lot of men, free gifts, free dinners, free things, that if you would take those women and talk to those women, they're not even interested at the guy, just because the guy is offering that because he thinks that he maybe has a chance with them. The woman just takes it, and then a lot of women get surprised when 30, 31, 32 happens that their windows is a little bit closed down because guys are saying, look, you used to use us, now we're doing the same thing to you. And I feel that a lot of women like, don't do to others what you wouldn't like people to do to you.
Okay, I agree.
Okay, can I interject one?
Let me say, I agree with the call. Now that's called secondary prostitution. That's the title I give to that. If women, if this is the way they're rolling, and taking these gifts and they're not even interested, I have coined the phrase secondary prostitution is what they're doing. And no, that's not right. And I think that you do have a point. I think a lot of women play around a little bit too long, and then they realize, wow, okay, there's this window of time here. But I think there's even, more women who really genuinely want to find a great guy. They're not engaging in this secondary prostitution or using people. It's just that, it hasn't necessarily happened for them, and they still want to know what are their best options. So I have touched on this phenomena that you're talking about, women using guys and just, they don't care. They want the gifts. They want the free night out. I've touched on that. And the people who are doing it, there's some thread through them, even though they try to ignore it. They know that it's wrong. And I do believe in what you said, what goes around comes around. But those women make it harder for the women like me, the position that I was in, and the other good women, to find the wonderful men of all different races and colors, because then the guys, by that time, they're jaded. By the time they meet them, they're jaded and bitter. So your point is well taken.
And I truly believe that it's we lost the fight between both genders. I really hope that we come to the point, like, as a guy, if a guy is doing something bad as a man, then you tell him. But as women or ladies, I wish a lot of women would say to other women, don't do that. Or don't, because it brings us the loss of respect that we have between both genders. And it brings us, I'm not going to trust her. I don't know who she is. Or same thing with a woman. I'm not going to trust this guy because I know how he is because he could play me. So the whole fight between both genders needs to be back together so we can have a better relationship.
Yeah.
Ms. Robinson-Kiss?
Yes.
Oh, I just wanted to be respectful with your time. We were exactly at the hour mark, and I think you passed it during your response. It's all good. You have two more callers, and I don't know if they
we can take the two callers, and we can wrap.
Okay, definitely. I just wanted to be respectful with your time. I know we
Thank
agree.
you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, sir. Can you stay on the line? I actually can you stay on the line?
No problem.
Okay. Thanks. Vic, you want to go to the last two callers and see if they have any questions?
Sure. Caller at 337. Your line is open. 337, your line is open. Did you have any questions or comments?
Greetings. Is that me?
Yes, it is.
No, I didn't have any questions for the guests.
All right. Thank you for calling in. And caller at 347. Your line is open. 347. I'm not hearing anything, so if you have any questions, just put a hand up. D-Train?
I'm good. I think this was a constructive interview. I'd like to thank Ms. Robinson-Kiss for coming on and sharing her time.
Thanks for inviting me.
No problem.
Oh, thank you for being so generous with your time, even going over and
no problem.
Just being so candid and really, helping us all learn.
Thank you so much. I wish you guys the best with the station.
Thank you.
No. Again, StaminaForMyLife.com. StaminaForMyLife.com.
www.staminaformylife.com. staminaformylife.com, and they can subscribe for my free video newsletter. It comes out every week.
Great. All right.
Again, thank you for your time.
Thank you, and don't forget to send the articles, please.
We definitely won't. We'll get that to you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Reckless 2.0. That was Miss Sheila Robinson-Kiss. I think it was a constructive interview. What do you think, D-Train?
Definitely. Some interesting points hit. Some interesting points hit. I think we all learned. Still haven't changed my position on those relationships, but everybody, think for yourself. Think for yourself.
I agree. It didn't change my position. In fact, it reaffirmed my position that
I agree.
That getting married, getting married to or just continued sexual intercourse with a white person can severely stymie one's efforts to think clearly and honestly about racism, white supremacy. But I think that she certainly was very open to articles and things of that nature. So, and she also had her she did acknowledge that there are disparities eventually. So I think that
they always do, don't they? Vic, can we get that caller on the line again? Non-white. I believe he was a non-white.
Hello?
Yes.
Liberal 141.
Yes.
I'm sorry, sir. What was your racial classification? Just
Black, American, African.
Okay. And you said you do not date black women?
Yes, because let's just say not all black women. Don't get me wrong. There are some good black women in this world, but I just don't want drama in my world. I don't accept drama, and I don't want that in my world. I had better experience with white women. I don't have this drama, and I don't have the fight that I feel that black has to prove something to their black women. And I don't understand where we had that, but I feel that a lot of black women that I went to, I had to fight them and show them that I'm a man and you're a woman. Don't act like you're a man.
Whew. Man. I would just say that's victimization from racism, where you had black females trying to assert that they're more manly than black males, and a black male having to prove or attempting to prove to a black female, a black woman,
but let me ask you a question. Don't you find it? I find it very disturbing when black women are coming to any black man and saying, "I'm an independent sister." What does it mean? That means you're self-sufficient. That means you're able to pay your bills, pay your house, pay whatever you do, and you're working. You're supposed to do that. Every human being in this world is supposed to be self-sufficient. That doesn't make you anything special because you're self-sufficient. So when a black woman tell me I'm an independent woman, I'm looking at her and say, "What? You can pay your bill and pay your thing, and you think that makes you special? We're all supposed to be able to do that. It doesn't make you special at all. That makes you just self-sufficient. That's all."
Any thoughts, Vic?
I think there's nothing incorrect about being self-sufficient, but I think the deeper meaning with the independent women, I've seen it as a part of the just part of the propaganda of separating black male and black female, and the masculinization of black women and the taking and the removal of the black male from the home, filling us up in jails and straight out killing us, and just in various ways. I see that, and then coming with the campaign of, I'm strong and independent, and really, a community, needs families and people need to work together. Nobody's independent. Everybody's dependent on other people.
Independent.
But I do think of victimization from both sides, just the reaction to it and the reactions to both things. Trying to prove that you're a man, or anyone trying to prove that having to prove that you're a man, or as a black male or female, I think is a direct result of victimization. We had 337 with a hand up. Your line is open.
Yeah, can I be heard?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, I didn't have any questions for the guest. Just her analogies in the article just made me just kind of cringe. The love train, the colorful love train, or something like that.
Yeah, when I read that, I was thinking, just words and how hypersexualized that was.
Mm-hmm. And just the level of confusion. But just to piggyback off of what D and Vic were commenting on, it is victimization on both sides. And one thing we got to understand is that just the level of mind control, that a lot of us are under. With it, they don't even know what an independent woman is. I mean, it's just something that it's just a concept that was pretty much given to them to self-identify with. You really can't generalize all black females, as to take on this type of mentality. For every quarrel, you might, apply to, a character flaw in a black female, they have an equal one that they could, come back at with a black male. So I think, we all just have to step back and not point fingers and just understand that it's a game being played on us, like to keep us divided. So, but I think it's further victimization when we just give up, so to speak, and say we're not dating, basically what we come from anymore, as to not recreate, ourselves. It's just, more victimization in my view.
Yeah, I definitely was going to say. Oh, liberal, hold on one second. I'll let you speak. I was just going to say that I wouldn't be quick to point fingers. If you're familiar with the work of Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., I would just say that, everybody is to blame. People who are most to blame are in plain sight. And people who are most to blame are all white. And the white people that are to blame are racist. So, you got to keep that in mind. But you can go ahead. But yeah, you definitely got to keep that in mind.
We have a caller at 347. Your hand is up and your line is open.
Hey, good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Vic, D-Train, as well as all the other gentlemen on the show. I would just like to know, do either you, Vickers, or D-Train, there like contact info I could get, on upcoming shows? Because I feel this network tends to not list the upcoming shows, and I'm not on Facebook, so I can't contact you.
Sure. You could email me. I'll give you my email offline, and we could definitely. Yeah, we could definitely. I can update you myself. Time we have a show coming pretty soon.
All right. Thanks. I'm sorry I missed most of the show, so I can't really comment on the content. So I'll just listen.
For sure. Appreciate that, M1.
Thanks.
Thank you for calling in. 314, your hand is up and your line is open.
Oh, good evening.
Good evening.
I was listening to your conversation earlier, and I had to leave and come back. And it was kind of comical, if I may say. I was getting confused on the way the word racism was being used. Another lady had mentioned something about an Italian family, and this Italian girl was going to marry this African American, and the family itself was repugnant of it. And I don't think that the family was being racist. I think we're using that word racist very carelessly in 2012. I think the family was being more protective than anything else. And you see that going on in many different cultures. When I was coming up, I was taught that. I taught that to my daughter and also to my grandchildren. That and a lot of time it goes on because of people have something to protect. She was mentioning, and I'm not being offensive to anybody, am I?
No,
Hello?
not at all.
Yeah. And she was mentioning the fact that having a difficult time finding husbands, and a couple of reasons was given because of the incarceration rate. Also, we must not forget the abortion factor of the close to 20 million black babies that have been aborted since the Supreme Court decision of Roe versus Wade. But on another hope, I must have attended about 7 or maybe 10 weddings last year. And those weddings, except for maybe one, you had African Americans that was marrying Africans from the continent. The last one I went to is one young lady, one black lady, African American lady, who was just finishing her, I think she was 27. She just done a PhD in medicine at Harvard, and she was doing her urban medicine, urban service, a master in that at Yale, I think. And she married a young man from South Africa that she met in school. And I'm finding more, Americans, black Americans, are choosing to go that route, and they're being very successful at it. Another friend of mine is married an Ethiopian young lady, and our community have a large population of Ghanaians, Nigerians, and also Somalis. Of course, Somalis, it's very seldom that you find one of them would marry someone other if they're not of their same religion, but a Muslim. So what's your think on why come there's not, when we talk about marrying, and I like the word ethnicity rather than out of your race, because we all humans, but it always seems like there's some mysticism about black people marrying white, but we never put much emphasis on, black-born Americans marrying Africans from the continent, that's here. Like I mentioned earlier, of a friend of mine who traveled to Ethiopia to marry. What's your opinion on that?
Mm. Well, I would say that I guess marrying outside of one so-called ethnicity is it's just not the same. The same thing. Especially if the people are of the same race, like so-called race that has been. They've been classified by white people. it's a person from the area of the world of Africa, marrying a black person from this area of the world is not seen as interracial dating, and I think that this comes back to the term interracial. It really means white people having sex with non-white people, and not a so-called Hispanic person and a black person getting together. And that's been, I see that that's part of the major push right now, especially, for black females to, to start dating white males. This is part of the major push. They're doing this, while the black males are being, removed from the home, and it's just, and there's articles saying that making black women feel like they're never going to get married, and they've been told that they're the least attractive females out there, and there's all this hair mutilation and things of that nature. It's all part of propaganda and a form of mind control and really trying to direct the behaviors of black females, and I see that that's why there's so much of a stigma or about that, because it's when the person says interracial, they are saying sex between a white person and a non-white person.
Well, that's very interesting. I never did perceive it to be that way myself. Very interesting indeed, but I can see the motives behind it. And it's just this here in America. America is so obsessed with this thing about. Actually, if I was a black man, well, actually, it's the black male that's more apt to marry a white woman than you would see a black woman marrying a white male. And I always ask. I say I never see a Rockefeller, Rothschild, or Oppenheimer's daughter walking down the aisle with a black male on her arm. And, that's very interesting to make that observation. But I think that African Americans should look into having relationships, becoming better acquainted with people from the African continent. Me, myself, I prefer dark complexioned women. And that's where I'm engaged with a lady from Ghana. But getting back to the other point, that the black American, slave descendants have so many opportunities once you marry someone there. I mean, there's free land, there's tons and tons of business opportunity that they have a birthright to just based on skin color, and they also their history. And the loops and hoops that they have to jump through here in America is just not there. It's just a whole different ball, and it's just like the difference between night and day in some instances. And in my conversation with groups, I try to. Matter of fact, I was meeting with some black businesses today, giving them information about these opportunities. Whether it's in meeting with business owners or whether I'm in high schools or middle schools, speaking on the subject of business, and also doing things in order to try to turn their direction into some of these communities that exist here in the United States within our own backyard that we're not participating with them, and the possibility of individuals finding someone that they could they have a lot in common with, a whole lot in common with, and be with a whole lot less scorn and ridicule by going there, right. And really, when you get down to it, when you really look at it, there's so much a cultural connection there. You find yourself seeing the familiarities in the food, and, the culture and the music, the dress, and a whole lot of things that you have similar that's going on there. Those African males, they have seem to me like they have more aspirations toward business. And the females too, when they come in, there's a lot of professionalism that goes on. There's a lot to be learned from both sides.
Interesting. Thank you for calling in. Let's see. Get player hater on. Yes, player hater, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you for calling in. Did you have any thoughts about today's guest? Or comments?
No comments. Nice discussion. Nice lady. No comments.
Yes, player hater. Well, I guess I would ask player hater and everybody else on the line.
I think there's some echo.
Let's see. What about now?
I think that's better.
Okay. Yes, I guess I would ask everybody on the line about when she mentioned the shortage of black males, and you know, she was in Milwaukee, and you know that you know, as we know in Milwaukee, 56% black male unemployment. I guess I would ask, how does everybody feel about those statistics, and is it really a shortage? And have you, do you agree with the guest's, I guess, assertion that there was just such a shortage, even though she didn't have raw numbers in front of her?
So who replies first?
Is it really a shortage? Do you agree? Anyone.
Well, okay, first off, it's like Milwaukee, Wisconsin, right?
Yeah.
That's where she... Yeah. I mean, of course there's going to be high unemployment because there are probably like 5 black people total who live there, and 3 of them may not have jobs. You know, it's not like it's Los Angeles or anything where we have a very large African American population. When you have small numbers, you're bound to have fluctuations like that.
Let me look up the population for Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Yeah, let me do that real quick.
I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe there's millions of black people in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but...
I don't even think there's a million people there, but give me one second.
Yeah, I don't think there's a million people total, let alone African American. And, you know, as far as, you know, it's hard to find, you know, a compatible partner, like, I mean, yeah, it's hard. You know, if finding someone of the same ethnicity was a priority to her, then she'd keep looking. And if it's not, then she'll stop. You know, that's what it really comes down to. Hello?
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, I'm sorry.
Oh no, D-Train, go ahead.
I just wanted to. Interestingly enough, the majority population in numbers of people in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, are quote unquote non-Hispanic black or African American people, whatever that means.
Oh well, I mean, clearly those numbers can't be right then because Obama, we have a black president, and racism is over.
Oh, okay.
So I think you just need to redo your census, and you'll find out that there's really no problem.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean... Well, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but, you know, it just comes down to, do you want it or not? If you want it, then you'll keep looking, and if at the end of the day, it doesn't matter as much as, finding someone, then, it doesn't really matter for you. Am I wrong?
No, I don't think you're wrong at all, Play Hater. I was about to say the same thing, and nothing you should do. You can use some of those statistics for reference points, but don't use them as the beginning and ending of everything. In other words, just don't take these stats as the total truth. Because I believe a lot of that is just perception.
Oh, speaking of statistics.
Well, can I just interject?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. If anything, the actual reality is probably worse than statistics. Traditionally, unemployment rate only measures people who are actively looking for jobs. And, as we all know, the economic downturn, there are literally millions of people who just gave up looking. And so these statistics on unemployment rate and whatnot don't even include them. So I think you're right, but I think the reality is actually, much, much worse than these statistics say.
Oh, and it also doesn't include the people who are underemployed either. Speaking of statistics, I was on Wikipedia today, and have you noticed the change? And not to say that Wikipedia is the end-all, be-all of statistics. I mean, obviously it's copied and cited from other places, but have you noticed the change in racial classifications? I've just been looking up cities in the United States lately, and the racial classifications have changed to where Hispanic now appears to be a racial classification. This is interesting. It says, according to the 2010 census, and this is Milwaukee, Wisconsin, we're talking about, 37.0% of the population was non-Hispanic whites, 39.2% was non-Hispanic black or African American, 0.6 non-Hispanic American Indian or Alaska Native, 3.5% non-Hispanic Asian, 1% from some other race non-Hispanic, and 2.2% two or more races non-Hispanic. And now it says 17.3% of Milwaukee's population was of Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin. That means that now Hispanic, it looks like it has actually become a race on the United States Census, interestingly enough. But then in parentheses it says they may be of any race, so I'm not certain what that means, but it appears that they're counting them as a racial group. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
I do remember some time ago there was a report on how quote-unquote Hispanics have increased the numbers of the white population. Because, I'm sure there's always this talk about the white birth rate going down. 2050, whites will no longer be the majority. Hello?
You still on?
Yeah, and there was a report earlier that stated that I guess people who would have normally classified themselves as Hispanic in previous census were starting to call themselves white and adding to the white population. So this doesn't surprise me. And now, of course, there are always these other variables thrown in, which like I said, which aren't, mixed up and confusing, but wouldn't be surprised. But the thing is how, we should see where this goes. Because I, for instance, really don't see the people that, call themselves white or the people that we perceive as white considering a quote-unquote Hispanic person as white. I mean, we could ask Senator Marco Rubio this.
I totally agree. And this is why I found it interesting that white people have now, in the census, have made a quote-unquote Hispanic race. I think what's going to end up happening is that the so-called white Hispanics, after a while, they won't even be considered Hispanic anymore. No matter what language they speak, and they're going to get thrown into the white category. So that'll be, just like typically where they don't call people, white people from Spain, Hispanics. I mean, they do sometimes, sometimes they don't. Confusion. But yeah, I definitely think that, there's going to be a lot of confusion around that within the next 20 or 30 years, and I think that they're using this quote-unquote Hispanic race as a buffer to pull out the people who they want to classify as white and reclassify them as white later on, especially if they get married to white people.
That's possible. I just want to see how many of them are quote unquote welcomed onto the white team, as we say.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
Oh, I when earlier when you mentioned the part of the show I heard about quote unquote successful black people marrying white, I thought about that when I heard the last show. Y'all were discussing House of Lies.
Hello?
I'm here.
Oh yes. Yeah, you're on.
Yeah, remember y'all discussing House of Lies, and that show kind of pushes that perception.
Oh God.
Yeah,
definitely.
And the thing about it, I mean, like the way he describes how he, when he's with his ex-wife, how they quote-unquote have angry sex. Now, to me, the words angry and sex aren't supposed to be together. And it's like they choke each other, slam each other against railings, the wall, and I'm like, this is supposed to be fun? This is supposed to be pleasurable? But hey, I guess this is what our actors are doing.
Well, that angry sex certainly a part of white supremacy and dominating, the non-white person and being even violent with it. So, yeah.
Oh, and D-Chain.
Yes, sir. One second. Walking Bear is now on the line, so you can speak when you want to, sir. You can go ahead, M1.
Yeah.
Yeah, great guys. How you guys doing?
Good evening.
Evening.
Hello. Yes, I'm here. This is David, Walking Bear.
Oh, okay. Did you want to talk?
Well, I was just saying, I noticed, like, if you look at, I guess, the census in the past, as well as any job applications, they always break down the, Latinos as either Latino white or Hispanic white or Hispanic black. So that's part of it. And then, I was mentioning on Skype to D-Train that Andrew Hacker, and I can't think of his book he had, but I've seen him on a couple talk shows over the past years, and he used to say that like Asians are honorary white people, and I guess white-skinned Latinos are also honorary white people because white people know that they're a minority and they need to add people to the population. So, as you guys were already saying, eventually it won't even be considered Latino or Hispanic. They're just white people. And I'm sure those people who are Latino, Hispanic are not going to fight losing that title of being non-white. They'll embrace it as a badge of honor. And it's like the Cuban Americans do down in, they do the same thing. Those who are white-skinned are just as abusive and oppressive as full-blown white European Americans.
Yeah, that is true. And also, when I guess D-Train, when you have another discussion on TV programs, I will get into that show you discussed about the mayor of Chicago. It's called Boss.
Is it on Showtime?
It's on Stars.
Okay. I think I know somebody with Stars, so I could probably go over there and watch it.
Yeah, but I tell you, it's just nothing but racism, mistreatment of non-white people. And I'll just say this about it. It to me, when I saw that the show got a renewal for a second season after one episode, I just thought, this is not about ratings. This is just about, white people pushing an agenda. Like I said, how can a show be so successful after seeing it once, you want to renew it again for a second season? If you're not putting out a particular message. And when you see it, you will see all of the negative things about it.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Play a hater? Oh, were you about to say something?
No.
Okay. Did anybody have any, comments on? We had a caller who called in earlier this program, not liberal, but another person. Did anybody have any thoughts on what that person shared? Keep it constructive. Did anybody have any thoughts or,
That call that only dates white women?
Liberal was the caller who said that he only dated white women. There was a caller before him. Maybe that was before you got on the line. Maybe that was before anybody still in the car.
I believe. Was it? Yes. He spoke. He says he only loves black women and white women, and yeah.
He also said that white people are the only niggas.
And he missed that they're racist too. I guess I just believe. It's obvious he needs, to refocus his thinking. But unfortunately, that kind of thought is not common.
Does anybody think that perhaps black males can be attracted to like the power of a racist? You know how they say that to some men they are attracted to powerful women. and like Mr. Fuller says that white women are the most fascinating beings in the universe. Do you think that perhaps that could have led to that type of thinking of any black male, where they say, oh, well, I know that these people are probably racist, but, I'm attracted to them anyway? Or, I guess, what are your thoughts on that?
That's part of it, because he did speak about how he gets some quote-unquote benefits from it, and I'd say once again, I've heard that talk too. She'll give you money, she'll even buy you a car, etc. Well, as we said, if that's the case, go out and get Sergeant Parker, or some mega wealthy white woman. But you see, they can't get them. So the white women that they get that will do those minor things, they feel it's something really great to brag about. And I guarantee you, that white woman, in the end, she's gonna come off better.
Get your Chewy Chips Ahoy on deck.
She's gonna come off better. but it's like if you can point out all these faults, and then when he says like how he doesn't date Asian women, Latino women, he just said he didn't date them. But nothing really horrible. He didn't say anything really horrible about them.
Yeah, I noticed that. That was interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, being strict isn't a bad thing, or being strict is not a bad thing, but being a racist and saying they're the only ends, yet you still feel that they're okay to have sex with, well, he just needs some work, and I would hope that he doesn't go through what Herman Cain went through and the countless other brothers gone through, who thought white women were so nice.
Hello?
I can
think it's feedback here.
Hello?
Hello?
I can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, sorry, just an aside. Speaking of Herman Cain, has anybody heard about the interview from Newt Gingrich's wife that came out today?
Oh, yeah.
Just wondering whether people would be willing to comment on the disparity between how Herman Cain was treated for just cheating on his wife and how Newt Gingrich is being treated for, well, I'll let someone else explain what he did.
Well,
Newt Gingrich is being made to look like a victim.
And also, I think what clip I saw today, I was at the gym. They had a TV monitor up there. It was a Fox News channel was up there. And Newt Gingrich, I was reading the transcripts, or the closed captions, but Newt Gingrich was saying that, and I'm not sure what channel news is going to have it, see it, ABC or whatever. He said that they shouldn't air the interview, from his ex-wife, who either wrote a book or just did our actual interview. And considering that Newt Gingrich is, excuse me, I believe on his third marriage, and he was one of the people that was talking a lot of smack about Clinton and the Monica Lewinsky thing, and then ended up resigning as Speaker of the House because he got exposed for doing the same thing that, infidelity, that he was, pointing a finger at Bill Clinton. So, but when it comes to those on the Republican side, they can always forgive everybody for the same thing. They'll attack their cousins on the left, the Democrats. You know, a good example is a lot of these guys who are running for office, for presidential office, are Republicans, never served in the military. But when someone who hasn't served in the military on the Democrat side, they want to attack them for that. And even when you have served in the military and actually been into combat, they want to still attack you, which is an example of when George Bush went up against, I can't even think of his name right now, but
John Kerry.
Thank you. He had been to Vietnam while Bush stayed in the U.S., and they still, swift voted him on that one. So it's just a hypocrisy. And, we got to remember Democrat versus Republican.
Yeah.
All same relatives. There's two sides of the same coin. One uses, I use this analogy, may not be a good one, but, Democrats, they're going to do you raw, and Republicans will do you raw, and Democrats will at least give you some KY gel and a condom and smile. And they both screw you. They just, one is a little bit nicer about raping you.
Yeah. I just wanted to point out that there's a difference between, what Herman Cain has been accused of doing and what Newt Gingrich has been accused of doing. Herman Cain is basically just, multiple episodes of infidelity, wife never found out, just cheating, he's, a horn dog. But Newt Gingrich told his wife, who had just after she found out she had multiple sclerosis, there's this other woman and you need to share or get out of my life.
Whew.
Yeah, but you see, but also, yeah. But you see, but that wasn't the first time he did that. The first wife who was bedridden with cancer. He made her son. He told he was having an affair with and dumped her for the second wife.
I think he had her son in divorce papers while she was in bed. Right.
So if this third wife gets sick, she's probably next. But I could care less.
I'm surprised he's not a Mormon, so he could have multiple wives.
Yeah, but
they already got one.
But like I said, he's being presented, as a victim, whereas Herman Cain was presented as some sort of leech, and I knew it was all for Herman Cain. I mean, when you first heard the name Ginger White, did you think that was a real person or something made up out of a dime store detective novel?
It does sound like a stage name when you say it. It sounds like a stage name or call girls, kind of, that's my professional name.
Yeah.
I thought it was a caricature, because it was, all of these white women that,
and then here comes Ginger White.
Yeah, and then the last woman, the cherry on top, her name is Ginger White. That's just very interesting to me.
I mean, I'm sure there were people who already knew about Herman Cain's background, prior, but he served a purpose, and I'm sure not that it really makes a difference if the President of the United States, as we all know today, if the President is black or white, the game is going to continue to play. Herman Cain, if he would have got there meaning beat Obama, it's business as usual regardless. I know I had some conservative whites tell me that, hey, I like Herman Cain, and, if he gets it, he's going to split the black vote. And I'm thinking, no, he's not. I said, black people. He said, well, black people all vote, for Obama because they're black. And I said, look, man. I said, black people have been voting for a long time where they've been allowed to vote, and none of the people they voted for were black. All the presidents prior to, Obama, President Obama. I said, and it's not, again, at one time, then the guy starts running into about, well, I don't think black people know that the KKK was Democrat. They're the ones that started it up. I said, no, the KKK was in the South, and yes, most Southerners, white Southerners, were Democrat, But, they all, and I use the word flip-flopped, it became Reagan Democrats and voted for Ronald Reagan. And then they, the everyday voter, switched parties from Democrat to Republican. And a lot of the congressmen and senators who were Democrats from the South, while they were actually in office, they got voted in as a Democrat, they switched parties. So I said, it's not the fact that, the Klan and Democrats, it's more they were white Southerners who were Klan. But again, he was trying to play a game on me as if, not knowing me, he thought I was ignorant, didn't know history.
They always play the same games with words. Interesting.
And it works for people who are not aware. If you're not aware of what's going on, you go, oh, okay. And then next thing you know, it's repeating it. And I've heard what he said, this one white conservative said, I've heard it enough times in my life, within, I'm thinking since 95, the first time I ever heard it, someone talking about, the South and Democrats, KKK, and, so it's nothing new. It's just something they just repeat. If they say it 100 times, a percentage of people are going to start believing it. A good example is when Bush and them were talking about weapons of mass destruction, mushroom cloud and all that stuff about Saddam Hussein, to the fact that I think they said up to 70% of the people thought that September 11th had something to do with Iraq and Saddam Hussein, because they just kept repeating it over and over again.
Yeah, and people's short memories, and of course, like I always say, the number one factor. It's easy when white people want to attack non-white or people of color. It's always, that is always, to me, the number one motive. Like I said, look at the hostile talk, with now Iran and Syria. Again, you can say these nations are non-threatening. They haven't declared war on anybody, but hey, they're not white, so they got bullseyes on them.
Yep. Right now we have what? Supposedly, they say that there's 700,000. They say that there's 7 billion people and counting on the planet. And then there's others who also say, excuse me, the world would be a better place with only 500 million people on the planet. In America alone, whites represent 200 million people and counting. And if you did the math, I guess we probably have about 500 million to 28 white people on the planet. And, that doesn't say much for the rest of us. And since they have race-specific weapons, biological weapons, it just I guess they figure out what they're going to do with all those bodies if they decide to, toss a plague out there. But basically, everybody, when you bring it up, they go, oh, I'm not surprised. That's what racist woman does. But that's not a response. That's a sad response. When you got people on TV making these comments and no one seems to be concerned about it. It's shocking to me.
And speaking of Newt Gingrich, definitely on Cree7's blog, cree7.wordpress.com. There's an article about Reverend Jesse Peterson and Newt Gingrich talking about black people going back to the plantation. So it's a very, very constructive read. And I suggest people visit her blog.
Wasn't it Newt Gingrich was talking about, I guess inner city children don't have any work ethic, and they should be basically getting some training. And I think he said something about reducing the janitorial staff at public schools and just have, I guess, one janitor which would supervise children would be one example. So these inner city youth can have some work ethic.
and other black people can have no jobs. So more black people would be unemployed. Great.
They're trying to revamp the whole system. I mean, when you think about it, I'm not sure what their plans are because I'm not invited to that meeting. But you know, when serfs in England and I'm sure throughout Europe, they used to live on the land and they lived there for generations. And then when those who owned the land realized it was more profitable to have animals, livestock, sheep, whatever on there, they kicked the people off. And then the people, move into the cities, can't find work, do what you got to do to survive, get arrested for, being a criminal, and many of those criminals got transported to the U.S. That's what they call them, transports. And they came here, and they were, there was only 13 colonies at the time, but I know Georgia, the Carolinas, Maryland. I used to have the numbers. I got them written down somewhere. I got it in a community college history class of how many transports that were documented that were brought to the New World. And that continued under British rule until the Revolutionary War took place and, the colonists were victorious over the British. And then that's when they started transporting their criminals to Australia. And we all grew up learning or hearing that Australia was a penal colony. Well, so was America. So it kind of gives a reflection of why, those who run this country and basically run the world are so bad. If you allow, I guess, the prison system in America to be released and drop them somewhere on the planet where it's already inhabited, we can only assume the worst for those indigenous people. If you live
definitely. But remember, in 1980, but 1980, whites got a taste of their own medicine. If you remember when Castro unleashed all his criminals, and we have the Marietta boat lifts.
Correct. They made a movie, Scarface.
Yeah, all of them came over here. And on the night, and people in this country thought, hey, this was great because, we're going to use this for anti-communist propaganda, but they were getting a bunch of criminals.
That's correct. You're correct about that. And I've heard on American television, currently Mexico uses the U.S. as a pressure valve, meaning when the population of Mexico and I guess the economy with unemployment, they kind of not release so much people out of prison, but they kind of turn a blind eye to the borders, allowing more people to cross over into the U.S., which helps reduce the population in the U.S. In Mexico. For those working in the U.S., they send money back, which also helps the economy of Mexico, like that.
I guess this is a bit unrelated, but did anybody hear of the Asian male in Chicago, Illinois, who was mercilessly beat by 7 other males? I believe 4 of them were white, 3 were non-white.
Mercilessly beat?
Yeah.
So they didn't stop until he was dead?
No, I believe he got away at the end. I can show you the video.
Did they chase him down?
Yeah, they chased him down.
And they continued beating him?
That one.
Yeah. Sad. For everybody who is in the Skype chat, I'm posting a link, and in one I can get it to you as well. Actually, I'll post it on the show page.
Okay.
Wow. Wow. White teens brutally beat Asian boy while calling him nigger. So much for that buffer status.
And how old was the Asian male?
He's 17.
White teen beat Asian boy. Very interesting choice of words, don't you think?
Sick.
Yeah. This isn't not a laughing matter at all. Ugh.
I mean, I shouldn't have laughed. I apologize, but
no.
But did you just see the but did you just see the blatant contradiction?
Oh my God.
What do you mean? What do you mean by blatant contradiction?
Did you say? Okay, I'm getting back to the page, but did you say the article says white teen beat Asian boy?
No, the article, that's what the video says. I believe that I believe it's accurate, but only to a certain degree. I believe that 3 of the males were non-white. I mean, I believe that one of them was actually his cousin.
Well, I'm just like I said, paying attention to the fact that they, that the person that wrote this is referencing him as a boy, while calling the other people teens.
Oh wow! Yeah, I did notice that. That is interesting.
One of the terms he's used is a houseboy, which would have been like a Chinese servant, male servant. In fact, I'm thinking of the TV show The Bonanza. I don't think they would call him a houseboy, but that was an area when the Chinese still had queues at times, and again, they were called a houseboy, and that was basically your butler.
Ugh, that coolie trade.
Yep. Coolie. Good job.
Did I hear someone say coolie?
Well, D-Train said coolie, yeah.
Yeah, that was another word that the Chinese people often called back then, and
well, we're not the only ones that are called the N-word, as
no.
Native Americans are called that. In the Middle East, many soldiers over there in that part of the world right now, they use that against them. They just say sand nigger versus, and also, of course, raghead. But the N-word is used in the Middle East by white Americans, and in the places where it's not a large black population, where Native Americans are the dominant brown-skinned people population, they use the word prairie nigger, res nigger for reservation nigger, So.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, I remember some time ago I watched the episode of Weeds, and there was this native from Alaska on, an Eskimo, and he was hanging out with one of the white characters on there. And then the Asian guy, not the Asian guy, the Eskimo guy goes into this tirade. And all of a sudden he says, "I'm not your snow nigger."
Wow.
And
I figure it has something to do with the weather when they get it up.
And the white guy says, No, I called you snow nigger with an A.
So they don't make it racial. If you put ER, it's racial. If you make it A, it's
But I'm like,
so have black people thinking it's okay to use that word.
But I'm like, when did that term come out? Snow and.
I just think that people find any excuse they can to use the word. And D-Train posted up on the page or the chat board, "Happy birthday, Martin Luther King," and they were calling it the happy, end day kind of deal. And again, people, some people still want to believe, well, it's the older people. As soon as they die off, the young people don't think that way. That's not true. If that's the case, they would have ended, 20 years after slavery or 50 years after slavery. It's not going to.
And the young people who do appear to be more refined, typically history has proven that they get more quote unquote conservative as they get older. That's what history has proven. Newt Gingrich used to be a hippie, so take that as
Yeah, we can go on with that statement.
Well, isn't it Michael Savage as well? I think he started out as a liberal. I think he said that on his own radio show. I know from me, my own personal account, I went to school to predominantly white schools in Maryland, and I think my high school 47 to 50 black students, and then there was a sprinkle of Asian. And if we had any Hispanic or Latinos, they were might as well say were blonde hair, blue eyes. The only thing that made them Spanish was their last name. But the bottom line is the people that I went to school with. I went to school with some that were, they would have said in 7th grade when I first met these people. My father's a doctor. My father's a bus driver. My dad's a Klansman. It wasn't like leave me alone. Well, you better stay away from me because my dad's a Klansman. It's just a matter of fact. Now other ones, obviously wasn't an issue because I was invited to their home, and I can say nothing happened to me. Their fathers must not have been as extreme as some of my classmates' parents. But the bottom line is those same children that I went to school with, hung out with, ate lunch with, they all became conservatives. I think 1 or 2 people that I was connected to on Facebook had marked down as Democrat, and everybody else is basically conservative Republican. So as they grow up, they become their parents and their grandparents and their great-grandparents.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Very, very few. Oh, go ahead, play ahead.
I was going to say that we have a black president, so I don't know why we're having this conversation. Clearly,
stop it.
And you people just need to learn how to not be bitter and to find your bootstraps and start lifting yourselves up.
I got some really old flip flops, so there are no. The straps I do have on is kind of broken, but I got some duct tape, so I'm good.
See, you gotta think outside of the box,
I need to run back to church and find Jesus.
Yeah, well, Jesus, not Muhammad. Jesus, not Muhammad.
I didn't say Jesus. I said Jesus.
Just making sure. You just have to keep a positive mindset. That's what's really keeping people from succeeding. They're just not positive enough.
Recently I posted the videotape of I'll probably do it now, but of the British person speaking. It was on a news newspaper thing. Well, not newspaper. I'm sorry, like a news channel, but it was on YouTube. It was a British guy talking about the history of Rhodesia, and when Rhodesia was basically giving up white rule and going to allow the blacks to rule the country. He used the term Margaret Thatcher, who was prime minister at the time, got a little concerned and transported all the lab stuff when they were doing basically race-specific biological weaponry down to South Africa. And then he's talking about, America and other countries preparing or making, again, race-specific weapons. And I posted that to a black lady I knew. And I really didn't know, her personally. I just know her through Facebook. And her reply was, thank you. And she said, for the video, and she goes, But don't worry, because God will take care of it all. And I'm just thinking to myself, that's what the master wants. When I say the master, our slave masters, when they introduced Christianity to us, it was not to make us better human beings. It was a way of controlling. So, controlling us, and instead of this person being concerned, shocked, upset, it's okay. God will take care of us.
Shocked about what?
Shocked about there are people out there that are making things that would not be. I don't have to drop it over in my entire city where collateral damage of white people are going to be a concern. I could just release it into the air, and a certain ethnic group of non-white people will die. And
well, they never made such a device, right?
I had a book called Black Lives, White Lives by Tony Brown, and even in that book, and this is back in 95, 96, he talked about race-specific weapons, and he was going through, based on, I guess, Freedom of Information Act, and apparently some senator or congressman in open hearing made the comment, and he talked about they have a race-specific, I guess, germ warfare weapon that would kill only Semitic people. So basically, if you've gotten a war with the Middle East, they could disperse it over the battlefield, and the only persons that are going to die would be those of Semitic background. Now I understand that those who call themselves Jews in the Middle East that control occupied Palestine, they consider themselves Semitic, but they've had 2,000 years living in Europe to kind of dilute that Semitic background. So they're white people with maybe Jewish afros, but for the most part, they're acting and living the life of a person who would be classified as white. They're being treated and accepted by that way. So I'm not sure there's something they have to be concerned about or not as European Jews, if those race-specific weapons that Tony Brown mentioned back then when I read the book, that they would be affected by it.
Well, we don't have to go to Israel or the quote-unquote Middle East. I mentioned this, and Dietrich mentioned this. 4 white men about 3 months ago were arrested in Georgia for trying to set off ricin attack in predominantly black cities.
Also, I believe one year that Jesse Jackson was running for president, and I think this was back in the 80s, if I'm not mistaken, there was the FBI captured a couple people that were planning to do harm to him. But one of the things also was, I think it was a husband and wife team, and they may have had other followers. They were going to poison the water supply of a city, and basically they were going to hope that would create a race war. I think the bottom line is they had already had water storage and all, and they were hoping it would kill basically everybody, including white liberals, and those who were aware of the plot would survive, which would be white people, and basically they could start a new America.
Wow.
So it's not the first time, and I'm sure it won't be the last. And these are just amateurs. These are not the government doing it. This is amateurs. So we know what the capabilities of the government are doing.
Victor?
Yes, I'm here.
You can hear me?
Yes, I can.
David, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
That's okay. Going back to the ethno-specific weapons, because I try to stay up on that kind of stuff. I was aware that they were talking about the desire to do it, but I hadn't seen anything that showed that came to fruition. That would be a very difficult thing to do. When Rebecca Colshaw was on my program, we kind of glanced off of that topic about how difficult it would be to do that because you have so many bordering alleles and genes and stuff. That'd be a very tough thing. I just wonder. I'm not saying they haven't done it, but
well,
to some degree, maybe some psyops are at work here. You know, they like to make you think they have weapons they don't have as well.
I can definitely see that, just for the intimidation factor.
Oh my God.
Well, I do agree, but
Hey, wait a minute.
again,
Let me back. Can I ask Player Hater something?
Sure. Go for
Player
it.
Hater, can I ask you what things you can recall that that you disagree with so vehemently? It seems to me that you disagree with so many things that I say vehemently. I mean, unfortunately, I can kind of hear it. It sounds as if you're tisking. I think I've been on about 5 or 6 programs with you, and I would like to avoid conflict with you. So, you know, maybe I'm mishearing it. Maybe you can correct me.
I don't remember tisking at anything. In this particular discussion, just scientifically, I think creating some kind of biological device that would specifically target one ethnic group, given the fact that there's probably like 0.5% or less difference between the genomes of like different ethnic groups, is just utterly impossible. Like, we just don't have that type of technological sophistication. So it wasn't necessarily at you. It's just like the whole idea in general, and the fact that, you know, people are arguing like, oh, you know, we have to be worried about these sort of ethnic-specific weapons when it's just not a possibility. But I don't remember tisking at you.
Okay. I'm glad I asked.
Yeah, I guess my response would be like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Good. See how silly negresses and Negroes can be. In this case, the Negroes. Okay. Yeah,
but based on what you just said, I'm sorry, Creek, but based on what you're just saying is, talking about, I can't see them doing something like that. You're saying that they have common sense. There's no logic to racism. You know, there's no logic. Back in the day when they didn't want us to drink from a water fountain, share the same toilets, but at the same time they were allowed. You know, they had sex with black people. They allowed us to cook their meals, which means our hands have to touch. I don't recall them having vinyl rubber gloves way back in the day. Bathe their kids, breastfeed their kids. But, you know, so I'm saying, you know, there's no logic to white supremacy.
Well, what I'm saying is that
actually, their demise, you know, that's irrelevant, because they don't. I'm not saying that they're not intelligent. I'm just saying that, you know, the logic doesn't come into play when they do things that they do or say things that they say.
I'm saying that it's technologically impossible right now to make such a device that you're talking about.
Do you think they're trying?
Hmm?
Do you think they're actually trying, though, at least?
It doesn't matter if they're trying.
See, I actually think that's how they make the system work. I think that there is logic to racism, white supremacy. I think there is a logic that ties together why they did all the things that you named. Yeah, I actually think it's quite logical, and I think that they're so logical that they won't even try. I think they know that is an area that they have to be pretty efficient with their resources, with their time and knowledge resources, and I don't think that they will plow a bunch of energy into something that is so
futile.
But wait a minute,
I think they would try to get out of the solar. Sorry, you can't hear me?
I can hear you.
I think
that's playing music.
That's not me. I think they would try to get out of the solar system before they did that. I think that's way more possible than ethno-specific weapons at this point.
But what about the billions of dollars they're spending per week in wars that are not for the reason they're saying? You know, they say it's terrorism, we have to fight that. You know, the additional $266 billion that they just gave to the military. You know, again, I mean, you know, that's resources, that's money, but they still spend it. And even Dr. Walsing talks about when you have people that are losing their jobs, you know, losing their homes, you know, people who are suffering in America, they still justify building, creating, and buying more weapons. So again, you know, I've never said that, you know, there's logic in white supremacy. And again, even if they were able to create it and think that, well, we're so good, and we're going to be able to kill a certain people, have to realize that they can also cause their demise as well. Again, I don't think they use a lot of things that they do.
Well, I guess we just disagree there because I think they're incredibly logical. And as far as like the money part of it, when I usually talk about resources, I usually try to stay away from money because money's just, I do agree with Fuller on that. Money's just paper. The real resources are the physical resources in the ground, time, knowledge, labor. Those are the real resources. And so they can play money games to throw up pretenses that various crises are going on. What I see going on right now is just a rearrangement of the order, and you've got a lot of racial sacrifice going on. But that's just the price that has to be paid to rearrange things. Make the economy look really, really bad. My prediction is that I don't know how long it'll take, but certainly less than about 25 years before they consolidate the economies of all the white people across the planet. So the currencies and the economies of what we now call Europe, both East and West, South Africa, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, all the places where white people are, and make sure you can get all the white ones out of Mexico and so on. So to make the economy look like it's so terrible, and they need notice they're always tying the U.S. economy to the European economy. That's what I think is going on.
I don't deny that at all. But what is logical? They always keep their eye on the ball. I'm sorry. I don't deny what you're saying, and I support that.
No, I'm done.
But what I'm saying is, what is logical about a planet that, to our knowledge, they don't have a way of escaping from, but they are poisoning the air, poisoning the sea, poisoning the fresh water supply, poisoning themselves, feed the foods and chemicals that are pumped into everything. They hate everything on the planet. They hate the animals, anybody who has color. They'll even abuse their own, people that they classify as white. But there's nothing logical in that, especially when you can't leave the planet. They treat they treat the planet as if it's it's Tijuana or something. Cross the border, do my dirt, and then I'll cross back into the U.S. And the thing is, again, to our knowledge, they don't have the ability to leave the planet, but they're destroying the planet. They have no respect for any living thing on the planet, and at times they even prove it with themselves and the things they do to themselves and those that look like themselves.
Yeah, I guess I agree with that. If they can't get off the planet, it's kind of hard to disagree with what you just said. As far as that's concerned, I would have to agree with that. It's, assuming that they can't get off the planet.
Right. So what is logical about that, in white supremacy? So that's my argument on that. But I agree with what you're saying about, it may not be paper money because paper is something they just create when they feel like it. It's a natural resources, which, talk to different ethnic groups around the world, you're carving into, the planet, which is, depending on your religious beliefs and the culture, that's the earth, and the earth is mother. And if you scar mother, that's wrong. If you poison mother, that's wrong. And they don't seem to have any respect, as we know, as for human beings on the planet, HUE, human being, people of color. And at times they prove that they don't have any respect for their own kind. Hence Catholic priests molesting, little kids, not just children that are Latino or Black or Native American, but even little Irish white kids, and I'm sure, Italian white kids have been abused by these Catholic priests. And since white supremacy is the most powerful, thing on the planet, obviously within white supremacy, people are not concerned about child molestation because they would have shut down every Catholic church around the planet if they were concerned about little children being abused. Apparently, they're not.
Yeah. Have you ever thought? What I agree with you. Let me say that first. I do agree with you. Have you ever wondered? Just let the idea float out there. Have you ever wondered whether or not sexual activity between prepubescents and adults in them is not necessarily that traumatic for them because it's so ingrained in either their nature or their way of doing things?
I have some views,
and that they just tell on each other. Like they're all like most of them are doing it, or they know somebody. Everybody knows somebody who's doing it, but they just like when they get really mad at each other, then they tell, and they know we're gonna see it, think it's awful, but they don't really. Do you ever wonder about that?
This is David. I do. I mean, I think for the victim, the child, it's dramatic. And it's going to alter them. And from what I know, from what I know about abuse, you know, you have a higher chance of repeating the abuse. So if you were physically abused, you're more likely to beat your own children or beat adults. If you've been sexually abused, same thing. More likely, there's a higher percentage. I'm not sure what the percentage is, but there's a higher percentage that you too will, molest children or even molest your own children if you were a victim of incest. Psychological abuse, the same thing. And I've heard psychiatrists use the term being hereditary because it just passes on. And I think they had traced one family, this was physical abuse, back to the Civil War, where the father beat the wife and beat the kids, and then those kids end up doing the same thing to their wives and kids. And they had traced it all the way up to, I think, the 70s or 80s when this program was on. So, I can't say what. I mean, we know the story about Rome and Greece, ancient Rome and Greece, and what was going on. And even to this day, there's a saying in Italy, women are for making children and boys are for making love. And that sounds like some Roman Empire kind of mentality, but I was hearing that when I was over there in '91 in Italy, and that was something people were saying. Now, I saw plenty of men and women together, and looked like they were, quote unquote, loving couples, but is it part of the culture and they just kind of suppress it? It's a good possibility.
Wow.
I mean, look, you're talking about homosexuality, or I'm sorry, you're talking about pedophilia within the culture. Well, think about dogs. When I say dogs, I'm not talking about the actual act of bestiality, but as far as I'm concerned, and I've said this in front of white people, I said to me it's like a modified version of bestiality when you let a dog lick you in the face, and when you let a dog dry hump your leg. In fact, remember they had a chihuahua, a little mechanical chihuahua that you clamped onto your leg, and it had sound to it. This is back in, I guess somewhere in 2000 something. It was like a little Taco Bell dog, but it wasn't part of Taco Bell. And you clamp it to your leg or to the table leg or whatever, and it's dry humping it, making these sounds like it's getting off. And and I remember seeing, I don't know, it was America's Funniest Videos at one time or another. Now you can find it on YouTube. But people will be at home and they let their little toy chihuahua or toy poodle or whatever hump their leg, and they're not concerned. It's like, dog is this. They weren't concerned. And now, thanks to Cynical Brother, Cynical African, he's putting together all these things. And it's not like, oops, the dog jumped on, little Timmy when little Timmy was playing on the floor. It's people getting on, teenagers to adults getting on their hands and knees while dressed in front of the camera. And people are in the room videotaping it while letting the dog dry hump them. I mean, something's not right. Something's not right with the culture. And again, that man's best friend, which is something, we've always heard. And, Remus and Romulus, which is supposedly the founders of the Roman Empire, two boys raised by a she-wolf. Something's not right. I'm not saying every single person who is classified as white is doing this. I'm just saying it seems like it's really, really common. and I grew up in a segregated community, but I went to school with white people, and like when we would go to the I guess we call it the strip mall now, but the shopping center. And sometimes I bring we had a little dog and walk the dog, and we had to cut through the white neighborhood to get there. And white people traditionally, if they were outside playing with their little sons and daughters, they stop what they're doing and give you the hate stare until you got out of their area. They never really said anything, but they would give you the look. And then you get to the shopping center, and again the same thing. White people didn't care about black people back in the 70s. But if you had a dog with you, they drop to their knees, and they're already petting and rubbing your dog, and they're saying, "Does your dog bite?" And they already got their face there, letting the dog lick them, And I enjoyed watching Lassie as a child, and I loved watching the show. But guess what? I always knew Lassie was going to lick Timmy in the face or somebody in the face. And even as I speak about it now, I'm fighting not to wipe my face, because that's the reaction I usually get when I see that. And even talking about it, I get that reaction. But again, I've met a couple black people lick dogs, see that, but most of the black people I knew who had dogs didn't let dogs look them in the face. But then I saw most white people, and I spent a lot of time around them growing up, and that was like no big deal. And usually the argument would be, because I wasn't saying anything back then, I was just kind of, I guess they could see it on my face, like, that's nasty. And they go, "Oh, a dog's mouth is cleaner than a human." I don't know if that's true or not, but they seem to think it's okay. And I've come up with my own conclusions why dogs and man are so close. And they were using wolves as pets, and eventually fed them scraps, or the wolves got scraps, living around the caves where the Europeans were, and they became tame and all. If the dog was allowed to stay in the cave with the people or wherever their dwellings were, not everybody lived in caves, and if you had a cut or abrasion, the dog may lick it. And, they found out that, these wounds heal faster when the dog licks it. Maybe there is an antiseptic in the animals, the dog saliva. And I've come up with some other, theories too about oral sex, especially when it comes to pleasuring women. Again, at one time, long before there were tampons and napkins, if some blood is running outside your leg or something, and again, the dog, now part of man's best friend, might lick it. And if you were asleep, and depending on how much clothing they wore, I don't know, but dog may have licked that too. And females kind of not resisting it, and maybe the caveman saw, hey, every time I try to copulate with her, she's running away, and I gotta hit her over the head and drag her back to the cave or whatever. So if I get on my all fours and start acting like a dog or a wolf or whatever they wanted to call it, and start sniffing around and start licking around, and she seems to calm down, and then eventually I can mount her like I want to. That's just my little theory. But again, I was like, well, how do you get from missionary or whatever position people are doing to oral sex, especially on a female? And that's just my little kind of figure out, where the heck did that come from? Man's best friend may have taught man how to do that. Hope it ain't gross anybody out.
No, still alive. Let's see, there's a minute and a half left in the broadcast. I guess before we depart, was there anything that, any last comments by anybody, or was there any housekeeping that you wanted to go through, D-Train?
Yes. Hi, Cree. Yeah, I just wanted to say that we're going to have a program next week with Walking Bear, who is on the call, on emergency preparedness. Should be next Wednesday at 8:30 Eastern. That is all I have right now.
I have two words for Vicus. Alistair Overeem. Haven't heard his name on your program.
Alistair Overeem?
And I have no idea why. You gotta get to that eventually.
Oh yes, we'll get into Alistair Overeem. We have to do our MMA program very soon. Whew. There's a lot going on with that. Okay. I just would like to remind everyone to visit Cree7.wordpress.com, her blog, and thank you very much for calling in, and thanks for all the callers for calling in.
M1, I did post on the show page that
all trains go to real places. That's the least we expect from a train, isn't it? The bare minimum. But Virgin trains also go to imaginary places. Ooh. Like alien planets and distant lands and romantic places where the rain's not annoying. It's sexy. In fact, Beam, our onboard entertainment service, is stuffed to the eyeballs with a whole host of films and TV shows. So you can give your mind a detour while your body goes straight to your destination. A real one. Virgin Trains.